It was late at night, and the salesman had been driving for a while. The rain was as heavy as his eyelids, and, as he nodded off and lost control, the car swerved left, then right before crashing upside down into a ditch. The guy came round, the water in the ditch lapping round his head. He pulled himself loose, feeling the blood running down his head. He staggered to the side of the road to flag down help. The first car that pulled up was driven by the most amazing blonde. Long legs, perfect hair, and satin skin. "You poor man," she said. "Come with me and I'll take care of you. Special care." "I can't," said the man. "My wife wouldn't be happy." "It's okay," said the woman. "I'm sure she'd want to know you're okay." "No," said the man. "She really wouldn't be happy with me going with you. It's not your fault you crashed. Come on, let me look after you." "No, I can't. It's not right. My wife really won't like it." The lady looked at him, steadying him by the arm, and said, "Come with me." So the man got in her car and went with her. He ended up spending the night, a magical night, with this amazing lady. The next morning, the guy woke up racked with guilt. "I have to go. My wife won't be happy." "Stay," she said. "Where was your wife last night when you needed her?" "Well, last time I saw her, she was still in the car, so maybe still in the ditch?" A first grade teacher brings in a sweet surprise for her class. Chocolates shaped like little boys and girls. Smiling, she asks, "All right, class, who wants the girl-shaped chocolate?" The room stays silent. Not a single hand goes up. Curious, she continues, "Okay then, who wants the boy-shaped chocolate?" Every single hand shoots into the air. The teacher chuckles, "Can someone tell me why you all chose the boy?" A little girl confidently raises her hand and says, "Because the boy has more chocolate, extra bits." A little girl walks up to her mother and asks sweetly, "Mommy, why did you name me Generous?" Her mother smiles warmly, "Because, darling, when you were born, you had the kindest eyes. I just knew you'd be a generous soul." Satisfied, the girl skips away. Then the older daughter comes over. "Mom, why am I called Precious?" she asks. The mother gently places a hand on her cheek and says, "Because you were my little treasure from the moment I held you." The daughter beams and walks off. Just then, their younger brother lumbers into the kitchen. "Mom, I'm hungry. Can I have a snack?" Without turning around, she says, "Sure, help yourself, accident." A man is hiking along a scenic trail when he spots a little girl standing near the edge of a cliff, crying her eyes out. Concerned, he rushes over. "Hey, are you okay? What's wrong?" Through sobs, the girl says, "My mommy, she slipped and fell off the cliff. She hit the bottom, and and the man gasps. "Oh no, that's awful. Is there anyone else with you?" The girl nods tearfully. "Daddy was here too. But when mommy fell, he jumped after her. I think he was trying to save her, but he splattered too." The man's heart breaks. He puts a comforting arm around her and sits with her in silence, letting the moment settle. Then the girl sniffles and says, "Can I go home with you now?" The man pauses, looks around nervously, and mutters, "Kid, I was just out here trying to clear my head. This wasn't in the brochure." Four old mates have been taking the same annual golf trip to St. Andrews for years. But 2 days before this year's trip, John drops the bombshell. His wife's put her foot down. He's not going. The rest of the group is gutted. What can you do? They sigh and head off without him. 2 days later, they walk into the bar at the clubhouse. And there's John, sitting at a table with 4 pints lined up like nothing happened. "John, well, what the hell? How long have you been here? And how did you convince your wife to let you come?" John leans back, grinning. "Well, I've been here since last night. It's actually a funny story." He lowers his voice and continues, "Last night I'm sitting at home in my chair, and my wife sneaks up behind me, covers my eyes, and whispers, 'Guess who?' I pull her hands away, and there she is, in this lacy little nightie. She grabs my hand, leads me to the bedroom, candles lit, rose petals everywhere. She's clearly been reading 50 Shades of Grey. Then she says, 'Tie me up, cuff me to the bed, and do whatever you want.'" John takes a sip of his drink, smiles at his mates, and says, "So, here I am." Little Billy comes home from school one day and finds the family's pet rooster lying dead in the front yard, feet straight up in the air, stiff as a board. When his dad gets home, Billy runs up to him. "Dad, the rooster's dead. He's on his back with his legs in the air." "Why are his legs like that?" Thinking fast, Dad says, "Well, son, that's so God can reach down and lift him straight up to heaven." Billy nods, impressed. "Wow, that's really beautiful, Dad." A few days later, Billy's dad comes home from work, and Billy races to the door. "Dad! Dad! We nearly lost Mom today." "What? What happened?" "Well," Billy says, "I got home early from school and went to say hi to Mom. She was in your bedroom, flat on her back, legs in the air, shouting, 'Jesus! I'm coming, I'm coming!' But it's okay, Dad. Uncle George was holding her down so she wouldn't float away." A farmer has 500 hens but no rooster, and he wants chicks naturally. So he heads down the road to a neighboring farm and asks, "Got a rooster for sale?" The other farmer grins. "Sure do. His name's Kenny. Best rooster you'll ever see. He'll service every chicken you got, and then some." "Sounds perfect," says the farmer. "Only thing is, Kenny isn't cheap. 3 grand. The farmer winces, but figures if Kenny delivers, he'll be worth it. So he hands over the cash and takes Kenny home. Before setting him loose, the farmer gives a little pep talk. "Listen, Kenny, you've got a lot of work ahead. I paid a small fortune for you, so pace yourself. No need to rush. Enjoy the process." Kenny nods like he gets it. Then, zoom! He bolts straight to the hen house. Wham! 1 hen, 2 hens, 10 hens. Kenny's on a mission. The farmer watches in awe as Kenny goes on a full rooster rampage. A little while later, the farmer hears a racket in the duck pen. He peeks in. Yep, Kenny's in there too. By mid-afternoon, Kenny's by the lake with the geese. Wham! He's got them all lined up like a barnyard Casanova. At sunset, the farmer sees Kenny out in the fields, chasing pheasants. Then quail. It's a full-blown feathered frenzy. The farmer shakes his head, muttering, "He's not gonna last the night." Sure enough, the next morning, he walks outside and sees Kenny flat on his back in the yard. Legs stiff, tongue out, eyes closed. Buzzards are circling overhead. The farmer kneels beside him, sighs, and says, "Oh, Kenny, I warned you. You didn't have to go this hard." Kenny slowly opens one eye, flicks it toward the buzzards, and whispers, "Shh, they're getting closer." A German, an Italian, and a Chinese man arrive at a logging camp deep in the northern woods, looking for work. The foreman sizes them up. He turns to the German, tall, broad-shouldered, looks like he could wrestle a bear. "You look strong. Grab a chainsaw and join the fellers in the forest." Next up is the Italian. Round in the middle, rosy-cheeked, smells faintly of garlic. "You look like you know your way around a stove. Head to the kitchen and help cook for the crew." Finally, he eyes the Chinese man. Short, slight, not exactly built for chopping trees or lifting pots. He scratches his chin. "Well, we're always needing fuel, tools, rope, gear. Someone's got to keep track of all the odds and ends." He hands the man a clipboard. "You're in charge of supplies." And off they go. A week passes. The boss decides to check in. First stop, the forest. The German's a natural, scaling trees, dropping trunks like a lumberjack legend. Next, the kitchen. Before he even walks in, he's hit with the smell of fresh bread, simmering sauces, and sizzling meats. The Italian's got the place humming like an Italian trattoria. Finally, he goes to look for the Chinese man, but nothing. Not in the forest, not in the kitchen, not in the bunkhouse, nowhere. Did he quit? The boss wonders. Did he get lost? On a hunch, he opens the door to the small, dusty storeroom. It's pitch black. "Hello?" he calls out. No answer. But then, a faint shuffle. Maybe a giggle? He steps inside slowly, waving one hand in the dark, until he finds the pull string for the light. He tugs it. Click. The light floods the room. And out of nowhere, the Chinese man jumps from behind the door and yells, Supplies. A small business puts a sign in the window. Help wanted. Must be able to type, good with computers, and bilingual. We are an equal opportunity employer. A little while later, a dog walks in, looks at the sign, then at the receptionist, and wags his tail expectantly. The receptionist blinks, unsure what to do, but calls the office manager just in case. The manager walks in, sees the dog, and raises an eyebrow. You here for the job? The dog barks once and trots confidently into the office. The manager, playing along, says, "All right, the sign says you have to be able to type." Without missing a beat, the dog hops onto the chair, paws at the keyboard, and types out a perfectly formatted letter. No errors. Then, he hops down and drops the letter on the desk. The manager's jaw drops. Okay, impressive. But you also need to be good with computers. The dog wags his tail, jumps up to the desk again, opens up a spreadsheet program, creates a chart, organizes a database, and even adjusts the formatting like a pro. The manager is completely stunned. Well, that's 2 out of 3. But we also need someone bilingual. The dog calmly walks over to the help wanted sign, points to the words equal opportunity employer with his paw, then looks the manager dead in the eye and says, meow. A new preacher was looking to rent a house in the countryside, but the only one available had a bit of a reputation. It was rumored to be haunted. The preacher didn't believe in such things, so he rented the place without hesitation. Sure enough, soon after moving in, the ghost made its appearance. The preacher told his friends about it, but they didn't believe him. They told him, "We'll believe it when we see it, or when you get a picture of it." Determined to prove them wrong, the preacher went home that evening and called out for the ghost. When it appeared, the preacher said, "I need to ask you a favor. My friends don't believe you're real, and they said I could only prove it with a picture. Would you mind?" The ghost agreed. The preacher snapped the photo, then waited anxiously as it was developed. When the picture came back, there was no ghost in it at all. Feeling a little discouraged, the preacher called out for the ghost again the next night. When the ghost appeared, the preacher showed it the photo and asked, "Why aren't you in the picture?" The ghost thought for a moment, then shrugged and said, "Well, I guess the spirit was willing, but the flash was weak." Every morning, a man crosses the border on his donkey, and each day his donkey is loaded with nothing but bags of straw. The tax collectors, eager to catch him smuggling, stop him at the border and carefully inspect his bags. But every time they find nothing. And yet, by evening, when the tax collectors head to the local tea houses or restaurants, they always spot the same man, now looking richer, boasting loudly about his smuggling operation and claiming no one can catch him. Furious at his cheeky bragging, the tax collectors spend hours inspecting his bags. They sift through the straw, cut it open, tear apart the fabric, even try burning it. They check his hat, his beard, and even cut open his shoes, looking for hidden coins. But despite their exhaustive searches, they find nothing. Each evening, the man is seen in the city, still growing wealthier, offering to buy the tax collector's meals, all while laughing and spinning tales of his clever smuggling operations. The tax collectors continue their fruitless investigations year after year. Finally, after many years, the now wealthy smuggler moves away to another city. Decades later, one of the retired tax collectors runs into him at the market. Curiosity getting the best of him, he approaches the man and says, "After all these years, I'm no longer a tax collector, and we're just 2 old men now. Please, tell me, what on earth were you smuggling all those years?" The smuggler smiles, leans in, and says, "Donkeys!" I had a vision of a disaster. Today, I'm going to die in a car crash on the way home from holiday, along with my friend and my girlfriend. On the bright side, we all lived blessed lives and will be heading to heaven. St. Peter is still at the gates, giving us a warm welcome. And of course, there are ducks everywhere. He explains that in heaven, we have limitless paradise and can do anything our hearts desire. But there's just one rule we must obey. You see, God created all creatures with love, but he kind of loves ducks the most. They're his absolute favorite. We can tell. Ducks are everywhere. So, my children, St. Peter continues, Above all else, you must not step on or trip over a duck. We thank him for the explanation, and before we even take our first step into heaven, my klutzy girlfriend steps right on a duck. Immediately, St. Peter appears with the most hideous person we've ever seen, and shackles her to him. As punishment for harming God's favorite creature, you will spend eternity in paradise. With this man. I'm devastated. I can't imagine an afterlife without the love of my life. But in my stupor, I trip over and squish another duck. St. Peter appears again with another hideous person and repeats the same sentence. As punishment for harming God's favorite creature. I look at my new unsightly partner and realize I've really messed up. My friend, though, he's a cautious guy and has always been quick on his feet. He's watching us from the sidelines and being extra careful to avoid the ducks. For months, he manages to stay clear of them. But one day, St. Peter runs up with the most beautiful woman in the world and shackles the two of them together. My friend is in complete disbelief. What did I do to deserve this? The beautiful woman looks at him and says, I don't know what you did, but I stepped on a duck. A man was driving a rental car along an old mountain road in Eastern Europe at night when his car suddenly started having engine problems. Unable to get a signal on his mobile phone, he spotted a lit building in the distance and managed to get there just as his car stalled. He knocked on the door, and a monk in a brown habit opened it. Good evening, brother, the monk greeted warmly. What can I do for you? I'm so sorry to bother you, but my car's broken down and I can't get a signal on my phone, the man explained. Would you happen to have a landline I could use to call for help? The monastery did indeed have a phone. The man managed to get the car company to send a replacement, but it would take a couple of hours to arrive. When the monk heard this, he invited the man to stay for dinner. Please take a seat and rest, the monk said. We're having fish and chips tonight. The man gratefully accepted the offer and sat down to the best fish and chips he'd ever had. When he finished, he asked if he could thank the cook in person. Of course, the monk replied, heading into the kitchen. Shortly after, another monk walked out. Thank you so much for the fantastic meal, the man said. You must be the chipmunk. You're most welcome, the monk replied with a smile. But no, that would be him. He pointed at a third monk walking over. I'm the fish fryer. A couple decided to take in a beautiful young lady as a lodger. One evening, the young woman asked if she could have a bath, but the woman of the house explained that they didn't have a proper bathtub. However, she offered her a tin bath in front of the fire. Monday nights are the best, the woman added. My husband goes out for darts then. The girl agreed to have a bath the following Monday. When the husband went out for his darts match, the wife filled the bath and watched the girl get undressed. To her surprise, the girl didn't have any pubic hair. She mentioned this to her husband when he returned, but he didn't believe her. Next Monday, don't go to darts, she said. I'll leave a gap in the curtains so you can see for yourself. The following Monday, as the girl began to undress, the wife asked, Do you shave? No, the girl replied. I've just never grown any hair down there. Do you have any? Oh, yes, the woman answered, showing her that indeed she wasn't hairless. Later that evening, when the husband came in, the wife eagerly asked, Did you see it? Yes, he replied, but why the hell did you show her yours? Why not? She shrugged. You've seen it before. I know, he replied, but the darts team hadn't. It was George the mailman's last day on the job. After 35 years of delivering the mail through all kinds of weather to the same neighborhood. As he arrived at the first house on his route, he was greeted by the whole family, who congratulated him and sent him on his way with a tidy gift envelope. At the second house, they presented him with a box of fine cigars. The folks at the third house handed him a selection of terrific fishing lures. At the fourth house, he was met by a strikingly beautiful blonde woman wearing a revealing negligee. She took him by the hand, led him through the door, and up the stairs to the bedroom, where she blew his mind with the most passionate love he'd ever experienced. Afterward, they went downstairs, and she fixed him a giant breakfast. Eggs, potatoes, ham, sausage, blueberry waffles, and fresh squeezed orange juice. When he was truly satisfied, she poured him a cup of steaming coffee. As she was pouring, he noticed a dollar bill sticking out from under the cup's edge. All this was just too wonderful for words, he said. But what's the dollar for? Well, she said with a smile, last night I told my husband that today would be your last day and that we should do something special for you. I asked him what to give you. He said, screw him, give him $1. The breakfast was my idea. On impulse, a young man bought a dozen roses for his girlfriend. When he presented them to her, she was moved to tears, tore off her clothes, and lay on the couch, spreading her limbs. This, she exclaimed, is for the flowers. Oh, come on, silly, he replied. Isn't there a vase somewhere in the house? The lion's birthday is coming up, and he wants some entertainment. So he tells the zebra to find the funniest animal in the whole kingdom. To do this, the zebra decides to hold a competition where animals will perform in front of a judge. Whoever makes the judge laugh first wins the chance to entertain the lion. The zebra decides to start by finding the most serious animal. He approaches a tortoise and asks, "Hey, tortoise, I'm holding a competition. All you have to do is sit there and laugh if you find an animal funny. Will you do it?" The tortoise responds with a serious, yes. The day of the competition arrives, and all the animals have gathered. Since this is for the lion, the zebra wants to raise the stakes. He announces, "Animals, your goal is to make the tortoise laugh. If you do, you win and get to perform for the lion. If you fail to make the tortoise laugh, then you will be killed and become the lion's meal." The competition begins, and up first is the monkey. He jumps from tree to tree, does flips, and makes funny noises. The zebra is pleased and looks at the tortoise to gauge his reaction. The tortoise is completely unmoved. ... The zebra shakes his head and the monkey's killed. Next up is the ostrich. He runs around in circles, stretching his long neck and doing quirky moves. The zebra turns to the tortoise again, but once more, there is no reaction. The tortoise remains still. The zebra sighs, and the ostrich is killed. The pattern continues with many of the funniest animals trying their best to make the tortoise laugh, but each time, the result is the same. The zebra is growing increasingly concerned that they won't have anyone for the lion's party. Suddenly, the hippopotamus steps up. The zebra knows that the hippo can't do any funny tricks, and just as he's about to have him killed, he hears the faintest chuckle from the tortoise. The chuckle quickly turns into full-blown laughter. The zebra is completely confused and asks the tortoise, "Hey, what's so funny?" He hasn't done anything. He's literally just standing there. The tortoise wipes a tear from his eye and says, "Ha! That monkey was hilarious." Two priests are heading to the showers late one night. They undress and step in only to realize there's no soap. Father John says, "I have soap in my room," and goes to get it, not bothering to dress. He grabs 2 bars of soap, one in each hand, and heads back toward the showers. Halfway down the hall, he spots 3 nuns walking toward him. With no time to hide, he stands against the wall, frozen, trying to blend in like a statue. The nuns stop and comment on how lifelike he looks. The first nun reaches out and pulls on his manhood. Startled, Father John drops 1 bar of soap. "Oh, look," says the first nun, "it's a soap dispenser." Curious, the second nun gives it a try and pulls on his manhood too. Sure enough, he drops the second bar of soap. Now the third nun, intrigued, decides to give it a go. She pulls once, twice, and 3 times, but nothing happens. So she tugs several more times and then yells, "Holy Mary, Mother of God, hand lotion too!" A young blonde was vacationing in Louisiana and had her heart set on owning a pair of genuine alligator shoes. But everywhere she went, the prices were outrageous. After yet another vendor refused to haggle, she stormed out of the shop and said, "Forget this. I'll just go out and catch my own alligator." The shopkeeper smirked and said, "Be my guest. Maybe you'll get lucky and bag a big one." Later that evening, as the shopkeeper was driving home along the bayou, he saw a sight that stopped him in his tracks. There was the blonde, waist-deep in swamp water, holding a shotgun. He watched as a massive 9-foot alligator swam toward her. Calmly, she took aim and bang! Dropped the beast with a single shot. With great effort, she dragged it onto the bank. Lying nearby were at least half a dozen other dead alligators. The shopkeeper stared in disbelief. Just then, the blonde flipped the newest catch over, checked its feet, and groaned, "Darn it! This one's barefoot, too." There's this new guy on my bowling team, Frank. Super nice guy, excellent bowler. But he's got this one weird quirk. At the end of every game, without fail, Frank says, "Next game, I might be 5 minutes late." Always 5 minutes. Every single time. Thing is, he never actually shows up late. He's always on time, but he still says it. It started to really bug the rest of us. So one day, our team captain decides to talk to him. But just as he's about to bring it up, he notices something. "Frank," he says, "are you bowling left-handed today?" Frank nods. "That I am." "I could have sworn you bowled right-handed last week." "That I did." Now the 5 minutes thing is out the window. All we can focus on is Frank's hands. Wait, he bowled righty 2 games ago. No way, he used his left hand all last month. Is he switching hands? Finally, our captain can't take it anymore and asks Frank, "All right, how do you decide which hand to bowl with?" Frank shrugs. "Easy. Every morning I wake up and look at my girlfriend. If she's sleeping on her left side, I bowl left-handed. If she's on her right side, I go righty. Been doing it for months, never bowled better. We're skeptical, but desperate for improvement. So we all try it, and it actually works. Week after week, we start winning, making it all the way to the national finals. Then, the morning of the big game, I wake up and see my girlfriend lying on her back. I panic. What now? No left side, no right side, just straight up snoozing like a board. So I get to the alley and tell the team I'm lost. I don't know which hand to bowl with. The captain turns to Frank. "Hey, what do you do when your girlfriend's lying on her back?" Frank just grins and says, "Well, that's why I always say, next game, I might be 5 minutes late." A woman walks into Bass Pro Shop to buy a fishing rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. She doesn't know much about fishing gear, so she just grabs one off the shelf and heads to the counter. Standing there is a sales associate wearing dark sunglasses. "Excuse me, sir," she says, "can you tell me anything about this rod and reel?" He replies, "Ma'am, I'm completely blind. But if you drop it on the counter, I can tell you everything about it from the sound it makes." Skeptical, she drops it on the counter. The man says, "That's a 6-foot Shakespeare graphite rod with a Zebco 404 reel and 10-pound test line. A solid all-around combo, and it's on sale this week for just $20. The woman is amazed. "Wow, I'll take it." As she opens her purse to grab her card, she accidentally drops it on the floor. "Oh," the man says, "sounds like a MasterCard." She bends down to pick it up and lets out a small fart. Mortified, she stands back up, figuring she's in the clear. After all, he's blind. No way he'd know it was her. The man rings up the purchase and says, "That'll be $34.50, please." She frowns. "Wait a second. You said the rod and reel were $20. How did it get to $34.50? He smiles and replies, "Yep, $20 for the rod and reel, $11 for the duck call, and $3.50 for the bear repellent." A reporter was interviewing an elderly couple for a human interest piece on their 60th wedding anniversary. Naturally, the big question came up, what's the secret to a long and happy marriage? The husband leaned back with a smile. "Perseverance," he said, "and knowing when to stay quiet." He continued, "You see, on our honeymoon, we went to the Grand Canyon and took a mule ride down the trail. Partway down, my wife's mule suddenly bucked her off. She hit the ground, stood up, dusted herself off, and said, 'That's one!' Then she climbed right back on like nothing happened." The reporter raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Well," the man went on, "a few minutes later, the mule bucked her off again. She got up, glared at the mule, and said, 'That's two!' Then she got back on without a word. And then," the reporter asked, leaning in. "Well," the man said, "sure enough, that mule did it a third time. My wife stood up, pulled a pistol out of her purse, said, 'That's three!' and then shot the mule dead." The reporter gasped. "Good grief, what did you do?" I said, "Well, honey, I don't think that's any way to treat a mule." He paused, then added myself, She looked at me, calm as ever, and said, "That's one."